Hello everyone and welcome to Eve Basics. Today I'm going to cover a topic that is so vast, I'm going to try to get into all of it. It is planetary production. Um, Planetary production cannot be done on an alpha account, so if you're alpha, you can ignore the next, I don't know, 500 minutes of this video. I'm just kidding, I'm going to keep it kind of short. But planetary production is a great means, in my opinion, of getting some passive income. While you're not doing anything, while you're not logged in, just like you're gaining skill points, your planetary production is also just pumping away. So let's get into how this works. I'm going to try to be as thorough and as brief as I can be on this very complex topic, in my opinion. So the skills that affect it are all under this planet management here. The two main ones are command center upgrades and interplanetary consolidation. As you can see here, my alt here only has 4 out of 5 in each of those. If you max these puppies out, you can do some serious planetary production. 4 out of 5 is good enough to get you some stuff though. And these other ones, just get them to 2 or 3 or whatever. They're not the end of the world. They're kind of a waste of time in all honesty, as far as I can tell. So those are the skills. Now, the things I'm not going to cover in this video are what to make. That's up to you to research. I have so many spreadsheets and so much stuff. I don't make me get them out. There's just too much to worry about in the what to make category. But today we're going to talk about what are called production planets. These are planets that harvest a tier 0 resource and turn it into a tier 1 resource and then turn that into tier 2 resources. That's what a production planet is. There are production planets and there are factory planets, and sometimes a little bit hybrids in special setups. But the thing I'm interested in right now is production planets. So we're going to talk about how to get one of those. So the first thing you do is decide what you want to make. There are various planetary combinations within systems that are very efficient at pumping out what you need. Today, I just scrapped one of my barren setups just so I could show you. I'm going to rebuild a barren planet setup that makes mechanical parts, because those are a tier 2 product that I need in order to produce fuel blocks, which is what I'm doing. I'm just getting a little bit of stuff to make fuel blocks on this character, and I can do it with a 5 planet setup. And so I'm setting up a barren planet. So the first thing you need to do is have a proper command center. They're big, 1000 m cubed, so you got to be careful what you're putting them into. I have a Nereus here, I have an Iteron, whatever. Let's use the Nereus because it's just going to be better. 10,000 bay is just overkill. But anyway, let's do this Nereus. I don't even know if it's fit or what's going on, but it's high sec and all I have is a command center, so who cares? So command centers are big. You can buy them from NPC stations. They are kind of like blueprints. So yes, you can buy them in Dodixie or somewhere else, but be really careful of the price. Usually a couple jumps to get them is pretty cheap. If we view the market details on this, this should never be that much. So here's people selling, like they should all be around this price, especially if there's 537 of them exactly. So you can get them for about, this one for about 81,000. So maybe for convenience, you can go here, but just be careful how much you're paying for these, because they are like blueprints and they spawn. The game spawns them, so just be careful. So right now I only need one, and it's in my Nereus, and we're going to undock. I'm in Marosier because this is a solar system that has a planet combination that allows me to make all the parts I need for fuel blocks. Don't make me get my spreadsheets. Trust me, no one wants that. I have set up a planetary tab. This isn't really all that useful, honestly. Most of the stuff you can do through the planetary production thing here. All right, so as we can see, I've already got a few planets set up. I'll go into what they're doing later. But I have one spot left because, hey, I can make up to 5 planets worth of stuff. So I have an unestablished colony. There's a few barren planets in this. There's Marosier 2. There's Marosier 7. But I know that I want to make mechanical parts. So what I'm going to do is I am going to show the info on this planet, go to planetary production, or I'm going to view the planetary production of this planet by going into there. Well, the first thing we see here is a beautiful looking planet. Look at that baby right there. And this little thing over here tells us the farther this white bar is to the right, the more of that kind of stuff this planet can pump out. Every planet type produces 5 different things. Some of them overlap with each other. Aqueous liquids are all over the place, etc., etc. But each planet has its own 5 things. Every barren planet produces these same 5 things. Every lava planet produces 5 different things, right? So each planet has its own slew of stuff. So if I want to make mechanical parts, right click and show some info. I don't actually believe that's part of it. Let me figure it out. I think it's the 2 metals, the noble metals and the base metals. Let me see. Precious, these make this, mechanical parts. Okay. And this makes that, which is used in mechanical parts. Okay. So what I'm looking at is the value of these 2 things here. If I left click on them, you notice my planet lights up with a nice heat map there. This is actually a pretty shoddy planet to make these on because there's so few of this resource. It takes base metals and noble metals in order to eventually get mechanical parts. So I'm wondering if I look at the other barren planets production, if it's any better. Let's take a look. View, oh, you can do it right from this menu. Right click and then view planetary production. That doesn't really look any better. And the only other deciding factor for what planet to put stuff on is the radius of the planet. This affects your links. We will talk about that later. The bigger the radius, the bigger your links are between your factories, and the more power grid they take up, and so it's not as good. So this is 5200 km, and this one is 3730. So we're just going to go with Morosier 2, and we're just going to do that. Because these values look about the same for both planets, it's not really going to be a huge deal. So the next thing that we need to do in order to make this is we need to see where we want to put our fancy schmancy command center that we have sitting in our thing. So we're on the scan tab here. And the scan tab allows us, if we click on a resource, to see where that resource is distributed. You can drag this out and it will slowly shrink the heat map and make it more specific. You can drag this side too. I never really do that. I don't see the point in that side at all. If someone can explain it to me, that'd be great. Basically what I do is I scan, I pick a mineral that I want, and I scan until I can see a couple of those bright white pools. 1, 2, 3, here's a big one right there. Try to scan it till it looks kind of like this, and then find the biggest pool. Here's 2 deposits right up here of the base metals. All right, so this is one thing that we want to get. So what I do is center this in here, and then I click, let's get that out of the way, and then I click the other one that I want to scan. Now I know that this pool is right in the center, so once I do this, then I know that that's there, right? There's good base metals right there. Now I'm looking at the noble metals. I'm going to have to raise my scan resolution. And it looks like that pool, really good pool of base metals there, it doesn't really have that much noble metals. They look like they're more over here. So what I'm going to try to do is split the difference between where I know those good base metals are, although you can't see it unless you scan out again, versus these noble metals. All right, and what I'm going to try to do is split the difference between those two, and that's where I'm going to put, about where I'm going to put my command center. Before I do that, I'm just going to check some of the other pools. This is a really good pool of base metals, but since I have so much more of those, I don't really need the best pool of that. It would be better if I had a really good pool of noble metals. So why don't we go the opposite way? Let's find the best pool of noble metals and see if we can adjust it there. This looks like the biggest pool right here. I'm all the way scanned in. Then we'll center that out, and we'll go to the base metals, and we will do that. Now, this looks like a decent combination right here, right? This isn't the biggest pool of base metals ever, but it's still better. Because we want more noble metals. So I think what we're going to do is split the difference here, and we're going to put our command center somewhere in this general area right here. Now the command center is not important for anything at all. The main thing it's important for is that that's where your thing zooms in when you go to your planetary production. So if your command center is on the other side of the planet and your other little setup is in the right spot, then every time you have to rotate the planet around to find the darn thing. So it's just much more efficient if you just put your command center right there. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the build tab, and keeping in mind we want it right about there, we're going to build the barren command center right there. Okay, now we're going to submit that. Now remember submitting, because planetary production is all about the submit button. So we're going to say yes, we do want to build that there, and it's going to go there. Now notice with my Nereus, I didn't have to be right next to the planet. All you have to do, I believe, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, is be in space in the same solar system as the planet you want to build stuff on. I don't know how that works. I was 1.5 AU away from this planet, and somehow my command center shot down out of the surface. And now I can go dock again or whatever I want to do. This Nereus is done. I'm actually going to take it to Pantheon Station because I believe that's where I put my epithal. Let's find out. Yeah, my epithal is in the Pantheon Station. We're going to get that and use that in a little bit. Okay, so you've made a command center, and if you left click it, you can see that it has an upgrade level. If you push the upgrade thing, you can upgrade this up to the level of as many levels of, what is it, command center upgrades as you have in your skills. Okay, and once you do that and you say upgrade, you also have to click submit. Okay, so now this thing, if I click on it, has a upgrade level of 5. Now it's got 17,000 megawatts of power and 21,000 teraflops of CPU. The power is much, much, much more limiting than the CPU for the setup that I'm going to show you today for Production Planet. So this is really the only one we have to worry about. Now, this now serves no function. Once you've got it upgraded, you can just forget about it forever. In the setup that I like the most, we don't use this anymore. It's just to focus the camera. So the first thing we want to do is drop a barren launch pad. So this, I put this a little far in the center. The barren launch pad, or whatever launch pad is, storm launch pad, oceanic launch pad, whatever, is the real thing that you want to be in between your things that you are trying to gather from the planet. So we'll take a little bit of a hit here, and we'll pop that right about here. Because remember, we're still in between this deposit of base metals and the deposit of noble metals. And so if we put our doohickey here, then we can stretch to both of those, and I'll show you that in a second. Actually, you know what? It would probably function pretty good here. Now, here's the thing about this. If we don't like this placement, as long as we haven't submitted it, God forbid, we can cancel it and get rid of it. And I'm going to actually put my launch pad like here-ish or something. We'll try that. And we'll submit it. Okay, so the launch pad is a place where you can, I never interact with it actually on the planet once I'm done setting up. I always interact with it through here, through the Planetary production window. You can, I'll talk about that later. Okay, try to keep on track here. Eve Basics, let's get it done. The next thing we want to build is extractor control units. And we're going to need 2 of these. One of them is going to extract this stuff up here. So we're going to put this now. I'll explain this in a second, but we want to touch this to our launch pad. All right. We want to still try to get as much of that white inside there as we can. Of course, that'll shift around a little bit as we go, but we're going to do that. See, it has an area of effect, a little radius there, and we'll talk about what that means when we get there. And we're going to pop open our other resource so we can see what it looks like. And we're going to kind of, do this so we can actually get a decent look at it. And we're going to build another extractor control unit touching on the other side like this. Okay. And then we're just going to submit that because we love to submit things for Planetary production. These are extractor control heads. They cost a lot of power grid from our command center. As you can see, I'm already used 35% of my stuff just building the launch pad and these 2 things here. So what we want to do with these guys is if you click these, there's only one button you really need for now, and that is the Install Extraction Program button. So we're going to click that. These are extractors, and you can put heads on them. All right, now here's where things get a little bit tricky because we have to figure out how many heads we want. Now I'm going to tell you some numbers, and what you're shooting for with these guys is 12,000 units extracted per day. All right, if you check your PP, Planetary production, every day, that's pretty good. Some people do it every 3 days, some people do it every week. If you'll get the most out of it if you just maintain it every day. It doesn't take very long. But I'll tell you why 12,000 in a little bit. So let's start installing. Actually, we have to tell it what resource we want it to get. This guy's going to get the base metals because that's the side that he's on and it's just easier to keep track of, and he can reach a little bit more over there. So what we're going to do is we're going to set the program duration. This is how long this extractor will run before it stops, to 1D, which is 1 day. And we're going to install extractor heads one at a time. Drag them over in here. Now you can see that they have values. And as you drag them around, that value changes. If you get it right dead center in the middle of the white, it's going to give you the highest value, which means it's going to mine the most. Now we're at 2,000. We are at 4,000 average per hour. We are at 6,000 average per hour. So you can see that if we want to get to 12 on here in a day, we are going to have to do 6 heads. Now I'm going to tell you that right now that's a lot. And we're probably not going to hit that 12,000 target because I know that this other one is going to need more heads than this one because the noble metals are a lot rarer than the base metals. So we're going to need to spend a lot of heads on this. So this is high sec PP. It's not very good. So we're actually going to lower our expectations. We're going to shoot for 9,000, somewhere around there. So 8 should be okay. So we're going to put 4 heads on this one. And we're going to do them like this, right? If they overlap, you start to get like, oh no, Billy, everyone's running into each other, negative 40%. The output's reduced. So they have to be spread out. They have these little area effects. As the program duration increases, as you run it for longer and longer, these little guys get bigger. See how puffy they are? You have to drag them apart again if you're going to run it for longer. So this is if I just run my extractors for 4 straight days. They get all big and angry, and they have to move them farther apart to avoid overlap. But I like 1 day worth of extraction for reasons. And so they can be a little bit closer together, more on the sweet spot. This will give us 8,000 units of base metals extracted per hour. That seems good to me. We're going to go with that. And we're going to say start extraction. And we're not going to submit that just yet. We're going to do multiple things before we submit this. Okay, we're going to go over here. We're going to install this program here. We want to get the noble metals with this guy, and we're going to adjust our scan so we can actually see what the heck we're doing. So this is a real hot spot right here. So we're going to start installing heads, change this to be a day. Ting, 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 boop, 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 beep, boop. Oh, too far. And we're seeing that with every head, we're getting about 1,000. So we're gonna need a bunch of these guys. So here they go. Up there, we can get about 6,000. We can get, if we pop 8 of these guys, we can match our other one. Having them match is the best thing to do for reasons. The problem here is that we might run out of power supply. We have, oh, that's a pretty interesting number we have left. What is this? We have 4,500 left. I'm trying to do mental math if that's going to be enough for what I want to do. We'll find out. We can always change this. And then I'm going to say start extraction. Right now, I haven't submitted any of these changes yet, so nothing's actually happening. These guys aren't doing anything. And they're flashing red at us, which means they are angry. And they are angry for one reason. When they extract this stuff, they don't know where to put it. It has nowhere to go. So we have to tell them where to put it. We want them to put it in this launch pad thingy because this is kind of our hub of our production setup. So we're going to have them put it in there. In order for it to go there, we need to link these things together. So we're going to go back to build. Create link. We're going to create a link from here to here. And we're going to create a link from here to here. This costs us precious power grid. We'll see what this does later. So it only costs 34, but these little values can really add up on a bigger planet. This one's nice and teeny. It's like a little asteroid, really. And now what we're going to do is we're going to right click and we're going to go here. And we're going to say products. Okay, so we need this one. It's not routed. We need to tell it where to go. It should be obvious, but it's not to the computer program. You have to tell it, create route. When you get base metals in your extractor, put them, or this is my noble metal, put them into there. And now it's happy. It's got a link to the launch pad. It knows where to put its stuff. We got to do the same thing with this. Products, base metals, they're not routed, but you're just going to go there. All right. And now that one's happy too. Now I'm going to start this puppy up here. We might have to change how many extractor heads we have later because we're going to run out of power, but I will get to that if we get there. I'm going to submit so these guys start working. Now, if you click this, you can see that every 15 minutes, this thing is going to pump out some amount of noble metals. Every 15 minutes, it's going to pump out 2,500. This time, this value changes all the time. And this one's going to pump out about the same. So we've got nice matched extractors here. But if you notice, base metals are what's called a tier 0 or a P0, which means they're like the lamest thing. In order to turn them into a P1 product, we need to build basic industry facilities. So this type of facility takes a P0, like something that comes right out of an extractor, and turns it into a P1. We're going to build a little honeycomb here of these guys, and we're going to see how much power we have at the end of this, because we need a certain amount to accomplish what I want to accomplish. Okay, so I'll talk about this later, but I want to just see if this all fits. The main problem here is we also need to link all this stuff. I'll link these guys like this, and this guy here, and finally this one to that one. Okay, so we have enough power left over. So I'm going to make this, and then I'm going to explain what I just did. So what I've done here is I have set up 2 basic industry facilities for this extractor, and 2 for this one, and then 1 of these advanced industry facilities. So here's what happens in my chain. These extractors bring their P0 products into the launch pad. That launch pad is then going to just route them into the basic industry facilities and turn them into P1s, which will then bounce back to the launch pad. And then the launch pad is going to route those P1s into the advanced industry facility, which will turn them into a P2 product and bounce that back to the launch pad. So here's how we're going to set that up. Out of this extractor, we are getting noble metals, a hefty amount every 15 minutes. These guys, they don't know what to make. You have to tell them what to make. It's pretty easy to figure it out. If you right-click Show Info, it says, hey, noble metals, yeah, you make precious metals with those. So these 2, we're going to set to be precious metals. We're going to say Install, and it's going to say, where do you want those to go? And we're going to say, why, to the launch pad, of course, create route. Okay. Then this guy, we're going to say, well, we're going to make precious metals with him too. So we're going to install that into the launch pad, and we're going to create that route as well. Now, remember, we haven't submitted this yet, so it's not final, but we're going to do the similar thing with these other guys. This extractor is making base metals, and those are used to make reactive metals. So what we're going to do with these guys is we're going to say, hey, guess what? You guys are going to make reactive metals and put them into the launch pad. And you, my friend, are also going to make reactive metals and put them in the launch pad. Okay. Now we're going to submit that. Now you can see that these guys are still angry. That's because the launch pad does not know to give them the base metals and the noble metals. So I have to tell the launch pad, hey, when you have base metals and when you have noble metals inside of you, you need to distribute those to these factories because they need them. They need this input, need input. And so you click on this guy and you go to routes. This is a big mess in here, but we're going to decipher this a little bit. Here are the incoming things that come into this, and these are the incoming things that will come into it too. We set those up in here. When this guy pumps out reactive metals, they go into here, and that's where these are coming from. All right, these inputs are coming from the extractor heads. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this, and we're going to create a route of the base metals. Hang on, I got to remember which side to put those on. They go into here. This one wants inputs of base metals, and this one also wants input of base metals. So we're going to take this incoming, create a route for it, put it there, and then create that route. Then go back in here, grab another incoming base metals. This is the outgoing base metals from the launch pad to this factory. We're going to create another route and put it there. And now we're going to submit that. These guys are happy. The base metals are coming out of the extractor into here, being routed out to these 2 factories, and those 2 factories are dumping their stuff back into the launch pad. The P1s they're going to make, the reactive metals in this case. Now we're going to do the same thing for the other side. We're going to take the noble metals that we get in here, and we're going to put them into these 2 factories here. In fact, if you try to put something into a place that it won't accept it, it actually won't let you do it. It'll yell at you, oh, invalid commodity, not an ingredient in current schematic. So if you can't really screw this up too bad as long as you install the proper programs. So now everybody here is happy. And now we got to deal with this guy. the basic industry facilities can only produce P1s. This can produce P2s, and even, well, they're calling it Tier 3. A lot of guides I've seen refer to it as P2 and P3, but Tier 2 products or Tier 3 products. Right now, we are going to just produce the thing that we know we need because spreadsheets, which is mechanical parts. And in fact, sometimes these things seem to figure it out. Like it's already highlighted. It knows, hey, you're making reactive metals and precious metals. You should probably make mechanical parts in here. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to install that, and it wants us to route it. We're going to route it to the launch pad. And it can get there because I have a link between this and this and this and this. So you don't have to have a link directly from here to the launch pad. You can load it through another factory. It's just like a little whatever. It doesn't matter. This right here is the most efficient setup that I can come up with. You might have a different one for this kind of production planet. But this is very short links, the best use of space, and the fastest routing that you can get. So now this guy's still mad though, because we haven't told the launch pad to put the stuff it needs into it. It needs reactive metals and precious metals. So we're going into our routing again. When precious metals come in, they need to go here. And when reactive metals come in, they need to go here too. And now, once you tell it that and submit it, everybody's happy. This thing will churn out mechanical parts, and everybody's happy about it. Now let's talk about the numbers. Okay, so that's the basic setup. And the reason we put the command center here is because watch what happens. If I go here and I say like view, it will zoom in on the command center, and then I can see my stuff right away. Instead of if I put the command center like over here somewhere, just plopped it down willy-nilly, then every time I wanted to go find my thing, I'd have to like scroll the planet around and all this garbage. So just put your command center right by there, even though it doesn't do anything in the setup except provide power to the setup. Okay, so let's talk about the numbers. Remember I said we were shooting for 12,000 with this. That is because if you produce 12,000 units on average an hour, these guys want 6,000 an hour in order to put their things out, because every half hour they're going to use 3,000. So each basic industry facility needs 6,000 P0 products per hour. So every extractor, if you can get it to 12,000, you can support 2 factories. Each one's 6,000. So since we could get about an average of 8,000 here, that would utilize one factory over 100%. So, you know, these factories aren't going to be pumping at 100%. They want 12,000, but they're only going to get about 8,000. But that's just how life is. The other thing is that this guy wants two basic industry facilities of each type of its thing in order to work at 100%. So this isn't like a 100% efficient setup because our extractors just can't get us enough raw materials, and that's okay. It is, what, 75% efficient, maybe a little bit more. If we can get them to 8,000, if we can get them to 9,000, I think that's 75%, actually, now that I do the math. Don't blame me. It's late, and I've been drinking. So that's the deal. That's why these numbers are important. Your go-to numbers for the extractor heads, average per hour, you're looking at 6,000 if you want one basic factory, 12,000 for 2, 18,000 for 3, 24,000 for 4 of these guys. Now, unless you're in nullsec, you can't really get those kind of values out of your extractor heads. You just can't. High-sec PI kind of sucks. It's really safe to do, but it's not super lucrative. So I'd say as far as ISK goes, high-sec stuff you can probably make about 5 million a day off of a planetary setup. In low-sec, you can probably get 10 to 12 if you're pushing it. In null, you can get 15 to 20 million a day if you have a really good 6-planet setup with all your skills maxed out, with the 2 relevant skills maxed out. As I'm 5 and 5 right now, if I was 6 and 6, I would definitely be able to pump more out of here. But, you know, high sec is never really that lucrative. The other thing about high sec, okay, so we'll get into that in a second. This is the setup that I find to be the best. This sort of honeycomb of extractors and basic industry facilities with this. And usually a 2-to-1 ratio. If you can get close to 12,000 with your extractor heads, great. and then a 2-to-1 ratio of the basics to the advanced. And that's the whole setup. I'm pretty much out of power grid on this planet anyway. If I leveled up my command center upgrade skill and upgraded this to 6, I would use the extra power grid I get to just put more extractor heads on my extractors, because until I can get to 12,000 per day, there's no point in building more factories. I'm not fully powering I'm not fully supplying the ones I have right now anyway. So this is the production setup. But let's talk quickly about what to do now that you've got this set up. So this is where our epithal comes in. So we're going to hop into our epithal. I'm going to make this active. And this planet doesn't have anything in it yet, so we're not going to go there. We're going to go to somewhere that has stuff. Okay, so let's do like Marosier 3. I'll show you what to do, how to harvest your stuff, and what to do with it. So I just harvested actually before this video, so I don't know. I probably should have waited, but I just couldn't help myself. Everything you need to do is through this window right here. 98% of stuff you can do through here, so put that on your taskbar bar and open it up when you need to. We're going to just click warp to. We're going to warp to here. And while we're warping there, we're going to right click, say customs office, and access the customs office. These are little orbital things that you warp to pick your stuff up. Okay, so over here you can interact. I only ever have the launch pad, but you could have, there are more complicated setups that you could actually tab and have a bunch of different things. But we're taking stuff out of our launch pad, because remember everything routes through there, and we're stuffing it into this customs office, which is a floating thingy where you pick up your stuff. So what I'm going to do is drag this over here. Now here's the problem, okay? Here's the problem with high-sec PI is the tax rate is exorbitant. People know what systems are good for doing PI stuff in, and they jack the tax rate up by taking over these customs offices. Now, if I take the stuff out of my launch pad, there's 5 enriched uranium and 920 precious metals. And then I click transfer. Now it's in the customs office. It's inside here. And my ship, you can't see it, but it's sitting, where is it? It's sitting right by the customs office. Because when you click warp to here, it warps to the customs office, not the planet. If you warp to the planet, you won't be able to pick your stuff up. So warp to the customs office. And then you can do planetary commodities, hold on the epithal, and you can just drag this stuff over there. All right? And that is how you pick up your stuff. Close the customs office, open your next place you want to visit, warp to, it'll warp to the customs office, right click, customs office, access customs office, drag anything you want from your launch pad into the customs office, and then from your, don't forget to hit transfer, and then from your customs office into your planetary commodity hold of your epithal. So, like I said, it's not super lucrative in high sec, but it is something that can get you just passive ISK. You can just plain make money. There's an initial setup and a little bit of curating, and you're golden. I am going to swap to my other setup so I can show you what a nullsec setup looks like. I'll explain that a little bit, and then I think we'll be done. So we're going to go into here. I'm in RFGGF out in Syndicate. Oh, and it looks like one of my extractors has run out, so actually I should probably check that planet. Yeah, these extractor guys need to be started up again. So let's talk about this setup here. Okay. We'll use this to illustrate some things. So nullsec is way more bonkers, right? I need less extractor heads to get more stuff, so I actually have room for more factories. So I actually have 4 basics for each extractor, and also then 2 advanced. So I'm pumping out a ton of tier 0 on here. This is double the amount of product of high-sec stuff. I have a 6-planet setup here, and each planet has its own purpose in this chain. Ultimately, I'm trying to make nanofactories, and they require industrial explosives, Ukomi superconductors, and reactive metals. Now, you can see that the industrial explosives require fertilizer and polytextiles to make, and you can see that the Ukomi superconductors take synthetic oil and regular superconductors to make. And then we need reactive metals from somewhere. So I did a bunch of research, figured out the best planet setup for this, and found that it existed in RFGGF. So this guy's pumping out fertilizer for me because he's an oceanic planet and he can do that. This tempered planet is pumping out polytextiles. This gas planet is pumping out synthetic oil. This one's pumping out superconductors. This one's doing biocells because it's not part of the nanofactory chain. But if I had if I had nanites and biocells, I could make these transcranial microcontrollers just for fun. And I did have this planet pumping out. This is actually a factory planet, which we'll talk about in another video. It's kind of a hybrid. It's got a little tiny production setup here, but mostly it's just pumping stuff out of these factories. This is a little bit ugly. I changed my plans here a couple times. Do not stare directly at it. Here, look at this one. Oh, that's much prettier, right? See, everything's touching real nice and all that stuff. That's really good. This one's probably my prettiest. Except for this guy. What's he doing way out here? But anyway, that is Planetary production. So I hope that solved a little bit of the mysteries. The setup is fairly easy. You just have to kind of know what you're doing, and don't forget to link things. Don't forget to click the submit button. And that's Eve Basics on Planetary production. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope that it was useful to you. Thanks for watching.